So, what is anime canon? If you've spent any amount of time in the Boruto community, you've likely heard this term before. Despite the name being a bit of an oxymoron, anime canon has become a prevalent talking point amongst fans. What does it mean? What is filler? What is canon? Today, I decided to do a deep dive into the topic and attempt to solve the 6-year-old debate once and for all. Let's start by defining the terms canon and filler. In fiction, a canon material is accepted as being authentically produced by an author or an ascribed author. The term originated from the Greek phrase for measuring rod and was introduced by the Catholic Church for dictating whether sacred texts were official or not in their religion. So canon is essentially synonymous with being authentic, genuine, and official. In anime, canon would mean that the content of the episode is officially written or approved by the creator of the manga. The same logic applies to all forms of fiction: movies, TV shows, books, and comics. Anything that's adapting its story from an original source. Okay, so then what's filler? Well, the origin of the term filler is a little unclear. I doubt the Catholic Church was going around calling any text they didn't approve of as filler. But at some point in the anime community, we started referring to content that deviated from the canon of the original story to be filler, likely because that's what it does. It fills gaps in the story with new episodes and arcs not created by the manga artist. With these anime studios creating their own stories to stretch out the show, they likely weren't consulting with the actual creator of the story. Over the years, they've introduced plot holes, inconsistencies, new characters, and other things that the manga creator just likely never approved of in the first place. Now, we call these episodes filler. So while it may be logical to conclude that filler just means non-canon, that may not always be the case. You see, there's multiple ways to interpret the word, which is where the entire anime canon debate stems from. On one hand, people are arguing filler means non-canon, but on the other hand, people argue that filler episodes simply fill gaps in the story. Just because it isn't written by the author doesn't mean we can't accept it as something that genuinely happened in the story. Now that's an interesting take, but if we were to accept that as true, wouldn't that retroactively apply to all filler in any show? Is all filler just additional canon? See, that's where it becomes more of a gray area. All things considered, Boruto seems to be an exception to the rule. Most anime filler is still filler, but Boruto has anime canon. Why is that? Let's take a step back and find out where this all started from in the first place. Where does the term anime canon originate from? Contrary to popular belief, Kishimoto never said this. The origin of this rumor likely comes from an interview back in 2018. Mikio Ikemoto, the designated artist for the Boruto manga, said this in an interview with Luca Comics.
The original creator of the franchise, Kishimoto, helps the project by defining each concept and initial idea, later supervising the work done by the two mangakas. This happens differently, however, for the anime of Boruto. The Studio Pierrot series has taken an almost independent path compared to the paper version, offering the public a series of additional stories that run parallel to the manga.
Hiroyuki Nakano, editor-in-chief of Weekly Shonen Jump, further clarified,
"Usually the manga is done first and then it is transposed into anime. Instead, in this case, Boruto's manga and anime are two distinct blocks, but in order not to oppose too much they choose to take different paths and then intersect at the same point in the finale. All, of course, subject to our creative and editorial control."
So while Kishimoto himself never verifiably said anything as people boldly claim, we do have interesting statements from other people directly involved with the creation of the manga. The anime and manga run parallel to one another, and can intersect from time to time, subject to the studio's decision. Keep in mind that things may have gotten lost in translation, but this is the best English version I could find of the interview. It gives us a look into why the anime's story ended up being so different from the manga. Another prevalent source people often use is Anime Filler List's Boruto page, which lists the majority of Boruto's episodes as anime canon. Fans incorrectly reference this as an official source when it's simply just a community-run website. Anyone can just create an account and edit the pages here. Again, this is not genuine, indisputable proof that X amount of filler episodes are canon. So if we're unable to find the origin of the term anime canon from the creators themselves, then where did it actually originate from? A Google search for the phrase back in 2017 mostly led to a dead end, but I happened to stumble upon a 6-year-old article from Narutopedia's canon policy page, which stated the following: K-canon, or Kishimoto Kodachi canon, the highest tier of canon in Naruto and Boruto. Simply put, everything written by Kishimoto, and as of Boruto, Kodachi, is considered high canon. Later, they go on to mention a distinction with anime canon, which may very well be the real origin of the term. A-canon, or anime canon, the second tier of canon. Due to the nature of anime, most of what is seen is an adaptation of what we've already seen in the manga. Given the nature of the anime, the company that produces the series will at times create new stories not found in the manga to explain things that were left vague, or expand on things to better use the time slot. Scenes and explanations given in the anime that don't directly contradict K-canon can be presented in an article as canon. Without defining filler at all in the page, it seems as though their interpretation is that everything in both Naruto and Boruto's animes are canon as long as it doesn't contradict anything later on. Now unfortunately, I can't verify this source since the page has since been updated and removed any mention of anime canon, and the Wayback Machine doesn't have it saved either. Currently, the canon policy page simply states, canon is decided by the fans of the fictional work, with the exact definition of canon differing from one fan to another, which doesn't give us much help. But having said all of that now begs the question, is it filler or anime canon? Well, the reason I think most people are genuinely in support of anime canon is because there is a lot of it. In fact, after the conclusion of part 1, Boruto is approximately 75% anime canon, meaning 3 in every 4 episodes are not derived from any source outside of the anime writers themselves. The alternative to anime canon would be an anime that's 75% filler, which is not a good look no matter which way you spin it. Therefore, people say that the anime's purpose is to expand on the canonical story, by introducing new characters and arcs not present in the manga, rather than just being a one-to-one adaptation with a lot of filler. I guess that makes sense, but why haven't any other anime ran into this same problem before? Well, the simple explanation is that Boruto is a weekly anime that adapts the story of a monthly manga. It's literally impossible to turn 12 chapters a year into 52 episodes year-round, so the studio behind the anime takes the liberty of creating their own side stories to fill in all the extra airtime. Take this past Code Arc for example, that aired before the anime went on hiatus. The Code Arc was only 7 episodes, but managed to adapt an entire year's worth of manga content. That's why all of 2022 was anime canon. It's a one-of-a-kind scenario where an anime is structured so vastly different from its source material. So who writes these anime original episodes? His name is Honda Masaya. Honda is the main screenwriter of the Boruto anime, and he's very vocal online about his involvement in the series. He's either partially or fully written the majority of Boruto's anime canon arcs, including Kara Actuation, Mitsuki's Will, Hozuki Castle, Jugo's Curse Mark, and the Funato arc, just to name a few. As a lead writer for the anime, he's basically responsible for the story that takes place in the anime canon episodes. However, it's unclear if he really has any connection with Kishimoto and Ikemoto, the people involved with the source material. So going back to our original definition of canon, we can't confirm whether or not he has the ascribed author stamp of approval. His stories don't usually contradict the source material, but there are multiple cases in which, well, they sort of do. Take Kawaki for an example. In the manga, he's a ruthless killing machine, while in the Himawari Academy arc, he's a goofy comedic relief character. This friendliness and connection with others later contradicts the manga, where he's stated to be shunned within the village and not respected at all, which leads him to desert it altogether. So including such an arc as a canonical part of the story introduces a pretty large inconsistency in the narrative. Another case is the Funato arc, where Team 7 is allowed to freely leave the village on their own, despite Code lurking to attack Boruto and Kawaki at any moment. It's as if the threat of him didn't even exist. In the manga, all of Team 7 was immediately placed under surveillance and barred from leaving the village at all, because Code was still very much active. Again, considering this arc is canon just seems to make things more confusing for no real reason. I could go on, but you should be able to see now where the seams start to crack. At the end of the day, it really comes down to your individual interpretation. Fans of any given series tend to be the ones who dictate categorization of things like arcs and filler anyways. So while there is no verifiable source to Boruto's anime canon, there's none that deny it either. It may very well be just glorified filler, but it's looking more and more like we'll never get a clear answer. So that leads me into the final segment. What is my take on the debate? In my opinion, I think anime canon should be treated as a middle ground between manga canon and filler. If there were to be a spectrum of canonicity, I'd say anime canon would be right about here. It may not be truly canon in the traditional sense, but there's no denying that it oftentimes adds something to the story when true filler otherwise doesn't. Arcs like the Academy entrance and Kara Actuation are so closely intertwined with their manga counterparts that it's hard to call such arcs outright filler. But in the same vein, it would be stupid to claim that all anime canon has the same importance to the story as manga canon, or that every episode of the anime is canon, period. Many anime canon arcs can be outright skipped and you wouldn't miss a thing, which is why I'm not the biggest fan of it. But I understand why it exists. At the end of the day, the purpose they serve is pretty clear. They exist to fill gaps in the story. I think a Reddit user by the name of Kublai Gun said it better than I could have. The problem isn't whether or not something is canon. The problem is whether things are treated as canon. Regardless of canonicity, anime canon material is treated as filler pretty obviously. I guess it's all still real in terms of being canonical, but it matters very little when the story just forgets that people, places, and events even exist. A literal time-traveling turtle is just floating out there in the wind for Code to grab, right? Tonari is perfect fodder for Ten-Tails, isn't he? Nobody in Konoha seems the least bit concerned about that, or at least interested in securing him just in case. And Momoshiki protecting his precious vessel? Where was he when Boruto almost died to Ikeda, or numerous other incidents? If everything was treated as filler, the story would look a lot differently to how it currently does. Like, we could go on and on with examples showing what the story cherry picks what actually matters, and that's what's really important in discussions about canonicity. Not the little concern of whether something is canon, but whether it actually matters to the plot. For all intents and purposes, the anime canon material just doesn't seem to matter outside of the arc it's presented in. And with that, I think the point I'm trying to make is pretty clear. Whether or not anime canon is genuinely canon isn't something we need to be fighting over. What's important is what actually matters to the story. If you want a guide to watching Boruto and navigating the anime canon throughout the show, be sure to check out the video above. I hope everyone enjoyed the video. I spent a long time working on it. Let me know what your thoughts are on anime canon down below in the comments. Smash that like button if you made it this far into the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you're new. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace out, boys.